One of the easiest ways to manage and save your money is to put your expenses into categories. This introduces good habits, reduces financial stress, and gives you an actual method to build up and save money. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese. In today's video, I'm going to be going over why it's important to categorize your expenses, and I'm going to show you how I do it as a reference. Categorizing your expenses is a fairly simple process, but the categories that you select and choose will be completely dependent on where you're at in your life and your career. Just understand that it's important to choose and set them up in a way that is suitable to your lifestyle. Just as a simple example, starting at like a teenager level, realistically, you're not going to have that many expenses in comparison to someone who might be raising a few kids and are a little bit older in their life. Regardless of where you sit in the trajectory of life, there will be a system that works for you, and just understand that as time moves forward, this system will probably change and have to be updated in that process. So to begin, I would say that there are 3 major steps to sorting out your expenses. They are breaking down the high-level categories, and then understanding what types of expenses fit into those categories, and then not exceeding your spending limit for those categories. So starting with breaking down your high-level categories, I would recommend breaking down your top-level categories in a way that is simple, so just simple titles, and then also in a way that allows you to distinguish between each one easily. 3 suggestions would be to have an everyday spending category, a bills category, and an investments category. I would deem an expense fitting into the everyday spending category as anything that I purchase which I do not need to purchase to survive. So an example would be buying fast food, or buying a present, or just buying something for myself that I don't necessarily need. Let's say an Apple Watch as an example. It's essentially my everyday spending money. It's just spending money. The bills category currently contributes to my largest amount of weekly spending. This category is set up for any expense which allows me to live my life. An example would be my phone bill or my petrol spending. Things that I need to pay for to function. And finally, investments. Now, investments aren't really an expense. However, I do put money aside to invest in the share market, and realistically, investments don't fit into that bill or everyday spending category, so I've categorized it as its own item for that purpose. Now, you might say that this breakup is quite simple, and it is, but it's still important, and it's because I break my wage up into percentages every time I get paid, which then gets distributed between my bank accounts accordingly and allows me to plan ahead and make sure that I have enough money to satisfy the needs of those categories. You can see how I break up my wage in previous videos. I'm not going to go into it in this one. What I then do for those categories is track the most important and reoccurring expenses which are personally important to me. Now, this is where it can get a little bit more time consuming, but if you're someone who doesn't mind doing this and wants to have a better understanding of where your money is going, this is a good method to basically keep track of where you spend your money. Keeping track of these expenses has allowed me to budget my money more effectively and improve my process over time. I do it by keeping track in a spreadsheet, but this is just one way to go about doing it. You could do it by hand. You could have an app on your phone which allows you to keep track of your expenses. There are many ways to go about doing it, just understanding that it is important to keep track of important expenses or reoccurring expenses which are easy to keep track of. I now know how much money I need to allocate every pay to cover all my costs. I now know when I'm overspending. I have built a really good habit around my money, and from this, it has allowed me to now save over 50% of my income in the current position that I'm in. There's no denying that keeping track of your expenses and putting them into categories works from a financial and savings point of view. I really encourage you to understand where your money is going, because once you have a grasp on this, you can take further steps to then reduce bills and cut unnecessary expenses, which will ultimately result in you saving more and being less financially stressed in the long run. The benefit of following a structure like this will allow you to allocate money so that you don't feel guilty about spending your spending money. It will allow you to cover all your costs and bills in a way that is satisfying and easy to follow. It will allow you to save a percentage of your wage for a big purchase or just to have a little bit of extra buffer money. And on top of that, you should be able to build an emergency fund for a rainy day. Give it a go, because what have you got to lose? If you keep track for a week and try to put in a system which allows you to categorize your expenses, you will effectively have a better understanding on if you're spending money on shit or junk. Overall, I hope you learned something in today's video. I hope I gave you a little bit of motivation to give this a go. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking and subscribing. And as always, I will see you in the next one.